first of all, how has it been to be back on the stage after what, more than a year?
It has been amazing. It has been such a dream come true. I've sort of been waiting in my bedroom for the last 18 months and, dreaming about what it would be like to be back doing the show with everyone. So to be back here and to sort of get to have the response that we've gotten, it's been really amazing.
Well, but you have a kind of responsibility that very few people have, which is you have to know all these parts because you're the second Evan, or how do I call you? Alternate Evan. Okay. And then you also you cover for Jared.
Yep.
And
Connor. Yep.
So how do you do that?
It's been a long time of sort of conditioning my mind to sort of be able to switch back and forth, between the characters easily. I feel like I have a really great grip on all three of them. It's been, I was with the show about a year before COVID, and a lot of that time was a lot of rehearsal. Even in the middle of rehearsal, doing one part and switching to another part, or, sort of taking a bunch of different scripts and, making an outline of what characters do what on this time. And so it becomes sort of easier the more that I'm able to sort of dive into it. But the first couple months, I was finishing high school and learning all three parts. And so that was sort of a lot on my brain, but now I'm able to just sort of focus on that.
Did you play all three at one point or not? Have you done all of them?
I have done all three parts. Yes.
And then you start thinking, I know the line that comes for this one, but I don't know what my line is. I mean, it would be the actor's nightmare. It has to be.
Totally. I mean, there's one song where it's just all three of my characters. And so with all different harmony parts and the vocals and different dancing parts and different numbers on the stage. And so sort of having to learn all the different facets of the show has been really interesting and really fun to sort of dive into.
Did you ever, during that pandemic time, think, maybe I don't want to go into this line of work?
No. I mean, this has been something that this has been my first love since I was 4 years old. That was when I did my first show. And people laugh when I say this, but I really haven't stopped since. Like, it's sort of been the most consistent part of my life. I think COVID was really weird because that one consistent part was gone. And it made me just want to do it more. It made me sort of more passionate about it and more interested in coming back and sort of being able to discover new things, and even getting a redo on a character that I thought I sort of knew so well before. And so, no, that was never sort of my.
So did something change with you and Evan then? Did you think, yeah, he's different than I thought he was?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things. I think being isolated as a person, being isolated, feeling, literally as he sings on the outside, always looking in. I sort of, not for the first time, but in a really long time, really kind of felt that weight, felt that burden, felt that sort of, not necessarily depression, but there's sort of a heavy heart that everyone sort of got during COVID. And I feel sort of a responsibility now. And the other part of it is that I've also changed a lot because of that. When COVID shut down, I was 18 years old and sort of just navigating the world. And now I'm 20, and it's not a huge change, but it is a bit different for me. And I feel a bit more mature. I feel a bit more older, and I carry more of the responsibility to sort of take those experiences that I felt in COVID and in, my bedroom for all those months, and sort of take all of that stored up energy and sort of put it into this show.
Was college a consideration? Is it a consideration? Where does that sit?
Yeah, it is definitely a consideration. I mean, this sort of has been my college experience, is touring the country and being able to do this show. I did a year of college during the year of COVID. I just at a local community college near me. That was very, just sort of taking classes to fill some time and keep my mind occupied. But as in terms of just a formal education, I'm not sure. I'm finding that this experience of, being able to go to all these places and meet new people and sort of have my mind culturally expanded by, going to a different city in the country every week has been the most insane learning experience. And also the experience of being able to just develop a character and see how I've grown with it. I don't think that you can't learn that. That's something you have to sort of put in the time to do.
You were on a tour though as a kid, weren't you?
Yes. When I was younger, I was in the Addams Family tour. I played Little Pugsley. And I think that sort of sparked my love of even more of the industry. And I mean, for a 12-year-old to be able to be on from Arizona, to be on just a random, bus every morning, going to a new state and, doing school on the bus. I think it was just so over my head. I couldn't really enjoy, the parts of it that I wanted to enjoy, which were, trying the cool foods in every city and, being able to go to the kind of important places
You would also have had a chaperone, right?
Yes. And, my mom and my parents sort of would switch off and,
but now you're on your own.
Now I'm on my own.
So is that a real switch?
Yeah, I think it is.
Too much responsibility is probably what it is.
Yeah, totally. I think my mom, is constantly worried that I'm gonna, end up somewhere in a random city but I think for me, I really love the freedom to sort of, I keep using the word explore, but that's sort of what it is. It's just sort of, ask questions and see sort of historical things. That's my college. That's sort of my schooling is like seeing things in person, seeing, where historical things happened and being able to go to cool theaters and meeting, people in cities and towns that relate to the shows in ways that I sort of couldn't really imagine before.
Do people react differently in different parts of the country?
I think we're beginning to sort of see maybe not different places in the country, but specifically post-COVID, I think people are having a really emotional response to it. They obviously, the show is sort of known for being this kind of emotional release, but
it's awful.
Yeah. I
haven't cried that hard and that long.
Yeah.
And I must say, I didn't get it out of the movie. I didn't cry at the movie.
Yeah.
But when it's on stage, I do.
Yeah. I think there's a certain, for a show that's so much about connection and so much about, honestly, the disconnection that we're all sort of feeling, everyone has felt that disconnection in the last year and a half from sort of the outside world. And I think, more than ever, people are really connecting to the character of Evan and just wanting to feel connected to something, wanting to feel like you belong to something, wanting to feel like sort of the world, is, you're not sort of in a darker place all the time. And I think we sometimes have to ask ourselves, what are the lengths we would go to sort of fit in to, and I think that's why people are really connecting to it.
But you fit in with a theater community, right? So
yeah.
Why didn't Evan just do theater? That would have been the easy answer, right?
Totally. Listen, I wish I could tell you that answer.
And I think you were involved in something that I've always wondered about. Were you with the Jimmy Awards?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I've watched that every year because it's just so bizarre.
It's the most fascinating thing ever.
And I would wonder, how is that to be with people who are a lot like you?
Yeah.
And then you're competing with them. Is that just insane?
Yeah. I mean, I think that you really can't think of it like a competition or you won't get the most out of the week. I think, and people say that, right from the get-go, there will be a winner at the end of this, but the true sort of prize is that it was the most incredible learning experience of my life too. That whole week, I think about constantly. I mean, the friends that I made in that the week are going on to do the most amazing things. I mean, just the other day, the prom, which is playing 45 minutes, the national tour, I have a friend from the Jimmies in that. One of the other finalists just completed his run in Jagged Little Pill on Broadway. Like the amazing people that I was able to sort of learn from. And my coaches are directing all these Broadway shows and are in all these Broadway shows. And that's how I got this job, is because Tara Rubin, who was one of the judges that year, is one of the casting directors of the show. And that's when I first had my first audition for the show, closely after the Jimmies. And it was about 2 years of auditioning after that until I got it.
But the weird thing is, though, you're with other people who you probably were the king in the high school theater things, right? You could get the parts. And so you didn't really feel like there was maybe that much competition. I'll be in the show. I'll be something, right?
Well, I think that's true for any boy at a high school musical who's interested in musical theater. I think but yes.
But you get into this group and you go, oh my God. That to me would be like the hardest thing to take, is that how do you deal with these people who I think that one's really good? And
well, yeah. And actually, I personally feel the opposite. Is I feel like I thrive in that situation of, oh, these people are more like me than anybody else in my school. These people actually get the passion for this that I feel. These are the only people that, understand that this is where we all want to end up. And these are our peers for the next, 40, 50 years in this industry. I knew going in that these people that I was going to meet, I would see, in lights for the next. So I feel like to go in there thinking that people were threats or people were, that just is a disservice to the rest of my career, because I'd rather have those people as friends and colleagues, and I want to work with them, in the future.
Sure. When you see what they do during that week, is it a good way of prepping you for the real world? Like now, when you went into this, you go, yeah, thank you. I learned something from that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think just what a professional actor is something I had to sort of learn quickly. I mean, I did my first show at a professional theater when I was 10. I don't think I knew exactly what that kind of meant or what sort of important, just important parts of that come with it. But having to show up on time, if that means, warming up for an hour before, that means, showing up at your best. And that's something that I've had to sort of learn here is, my job here is I come to the theater sometimes not knowing if I'm going to have to go on that emotional journey. I mean, last Tuesday, what is today? Friday. On Tuesday or on Wednesday of this week, in the middle of our sound check, I found out I was going on in an hour. So, I have to sort of always be ready to go on, always be ready to sort of be in that emotional place that I don't think that I would have been able to fully be ready for if I didn't have some of that.
Can you flip the switch? Is it that easy?
I wouldn't say it's a switch, but I find that the emotion comes when I'm the most relaxed, which I always say to people. If I'm, always stressing about it, and if I'm thinking about it all day, that's when it won't come. It's when I'm the most present, when I'm really listening, when I'm really sort of in the moment. That's when, the waterworks start to really come.
I would assume that when you put the cast on, that's when you kind of try to get into it all, right?
Yeah, I mean, that happens about 30 minutes before the show. By that point, my voice is warm. I'm probably in a good place. I've stretched a little bit, and that's sort of like the last little bit that I need to sort of, we're doing it. We're about to go on this 2.5 hour long sort of journey.
Does the
That,
cast drive you crazy though? Are you like, oh my God, I can hardly wait till this is off?
it's very heavy. It's heavier than you would think. It's not even that. Sometimes I just don't even think about it. But now 60 or 70 times doing it, it's just sort of, that's part of it. But in the beginning, I was like, what is this big lump of plastic on my arm?
When you look out in the audience, and I'm assuming that if it's like I was, people are just sobbing during those songs. And how do you get through that when you know that somebody is like responding like that?
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword because I'm also going through that myself. I think
you know how Ben was always talking about how he'd have this like ugly crying thing and the snot would be running out of his nose. And
yeah,
that doesn't happen to you, does it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's part of this sort of role. And that's part of this sort of, there's the Jessica Sherman, who plays my mom in the show. She has, special wipes to make sure that our mucus doesn't get all over her. Because my mucus gets all over my costumes when I'm wiping, and constant.
That blue shirt, no.
Yeah, right. I know. And I mean, I just got, I didn't think that I was gonna have to do this yet, but I just got special eye cream because like the bags under my eyes were getting so sort of dark from, the constant crying and the constant emotion that the role sort of requires. But the thing about the show is that it's written so specifically, and it's written so for the actors, and our director Michael Greif is just sort of the master at subtlety, and the master at making everything kind of fit towards a larger story. And so if I hit A, B, C, D, E, then it'll work. It'll come. I'm not. And if it doesn't, the story serves itself, and the emotion is still there, whether, there's snot coming out of my nose or not.
Is it a lot to ask of an actor to go through this journey with him?
So I think, yeah, I'm going to be honest and say, yeah, I think it is. I think it is a lot to ask an actor. But I think that first of all, they take really good care of us. They do really sort of make sure that we're not, hurting ourselves. I'm in voice lessons, a couple times a month, and I'm making sure that my vocals are fine. We're in rehearsals all the time. But the other part of it is, if ever I'm feeling sort of like this is such an incredibly hard role, or it's sort of weighing on me, I'll read a fan message, or I'll read someone who, I got one a couple weeks ago that said, after this performance, I was able to reconnect a connection with my mom that I haven't had in 30 years.
Wow.
Or I haven't, things where I have been extremely depressed, and your performance today kind of took me out of that depression. And so for me, if I can have that sort of, if I can elicit that sort of response from someone, which I did not think was going to be part of this experience at all, then it's worth it. Then all of that, hours of, sort of pain that I go through, if it's okay for someone else to sort of relieve that trauma, then that's why I do it.
The power of theater, I think, is what you learn.
Yeah.
And how great that is. Well, then after the show is over, then do you quickly kind of unwind, or what do you do to get back to the normal Sam?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I live a lot with one of the actors who plays Jared, and I need immediately to sort of, be broken out of it, or I'll sort of stay in that spot for a while. So the minute I got off stage, it's, what are we having for lunch? What's for dinner? What, something to completely, to crack jokes again. And even, even on stage, I think people would be surprised at how funny our cast is off stage. And, I'll come off of a scene where I'm screaming and crying and, really yelling at someone. And then I'll come off and, wipe the tears away, and we'll be joking away. And then I'll go right back into it. And then it's, right back into it. But that's sort of, I need personally, everyone needs their own things. I need sort of that juxtaposition of a laugh, a smile, so I can just jump right back in. And that's how I sort of can get there to that place better.
Of the three characters you play, which is the most fun?
Oh, Jared, for sure.
Really?
And that's, I've only got to do him a little bit because we have so many amazing covers for it. But that's who I feel like I personally am most like. Like, I like to joke around. I tried to take things not too seriously. I try to sort of find the humor in a lot of situations. That's sort of my coping. So it is sort of fun to, be able to play on the opposite side where everything affects you, from a deep emotional place.
Okay, when you saw the film then, what did you think?
I was really happy that sort of the message of the show was able to reach, a broader audience. I think the movie and the show have their differences. And I think, people have very strong opinions about the musical as much as they have very strong opinions about the movie. They're both their own different beasts. But, there's nothing like seeing this show with a group of people live. Like, there's nothing like just being able to sort of grieve with everyone around you and hear the audience react to sort of the bad things that Evan is doing. It's a bit more cathartic for the audience, I think.
I think it actually is two beasts. And I really think that if they wanted to really make sure that Ben was in it, they should have done like they did with Hamilton, where they just filmed the stage version, got that, did that. And I think the film version could have worked with different people. And it's nothing against him because, man, he got me crying. So but I do think that because we look at things, look at even now with West Side Story, that's a whole different beast when you look at it under a different microscope. Totally. And I think that's the same way with this. You can't say, oh, well, the movie was better or the stage play was better. But I do think I felt a greater sense of the emotion through the play.
Yeah, and I think also you can just feel that that live aspect, you can see that person going through it right in front of you. Right. You understand that they're feeling what you felt. And so I'm really excited. I've now done it 4 times again in post-COVID and have 2 more this weekend. And there is sort of a sense of, that you can feel the audience in the room, not rooting for Evan, but sort of having his actions being understood with everything else going around him. But also everyone else is sort of, the great thing about the show that I really like is that as much as Evan is an extremely flawed character, so is every other character in the piece. All of them have their very human and characteristics and flawed characteristics.
They all want the resolution that they think is right.
Yeah, totally.
And what do you do when you're not, on? Like if tonight, for example, you don't have to work. Yeah. Do you sit backstage and do something, or do you go back to the hotel, or what happens?
Oh yeah, we're backstage. There's a giant understudy dressing room there's 9 of us for 8 characters. So we're well staffed back there. And we pass the time. We sometimes have rehearsal during the show. Like yesterday we had a full sort of run of the show during the show. But then sometimes when we get shows to hang out, we play video games. There's like a group of young kids back there. So we play video games, we play board games, we, have art projects. We do anything to sort of keep our minds occupied. I mean, I came to work and played Mario Kart for 6 months at some point. So like, I loved it.
Are you good?
I guess I got okay at it.
Okay.
But, that's part of this job too.
What happens after you're done with this? Have you thought what the next step is after Evan Hansen?
Of course, those things started to pop up in COVID, and what would be something that I'd like to do after this. It's been hard the last couple of weeks to think about that because we're sort of in the beginning of this stretch of it. I'm hoping to do it at least for another year, maybe even a year and a half. But I I would really love to do something new. I'd really love to sort of go back to New York, and I do feel a certain bit of ownership over, whatever my Evan is, and I've been able to sort of make it my own. And I would love to sort of do that with a role that I haven't seen a million other people do.
Sure.
So I would love to kind of dive into something like that. But there's so much happening in New York right now that I would love to sort of, get my hands into.
And theater is the way, or do you look at film or television?
All the above. I mean, I've grown up doing the theater, but when during this time, over the last 2 years, when theater wasn't there for me, film and TV was. I got really into watching a lot of movies and TV shows I've never seen. I watched like 10 full series of all these random different shows I'd never seen, and when that sort of art, if I couldn't get my sort of fix from theater during this time, TV and film was there. And so I think before my answer would have been different, but now I'm sort of itching to do it a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, that's so good to hear. That's so great to hear. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
I hope you have lots of fun on this, but just know that I'm jealous that you were at the Jimmys. And when I watch those ones now, I'll think in a different context. I won't think that those kids are cutting each other behind the scenes. I can just see them. Good.
Yeah.
And good luck with Evan. I like it as a play. I really do. I really think it's more emotional for me. So I'm waiting to see that too.
Well, so, if you come on the Saturday matinee or Sunday nights, you'll see me when we're there. So
you're the Evan. You're the man.
I'm the man.
Get the cast. Thanks so much, Sam. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too.